Hi, folks. Just wanted to take a few minutes here and introduce the third assignment. I know the deadline is coming up here right away, but I hope you'll see that it's a fairly straightforward exercise. And it's based upon some of the topics we've talked about recently in our in-person sessions. So let's go down here to assignment 3, assessing site significance and common ground. When you click on it, you'll see that there are two documents, the instructions and the template. So let's download these and open them up. Okay, so due by 11:59 p.m. on November 15th, this assignment will be worth 14% of your final grade, as you can see here. So this, again, is the third assignment in our scaffolded structure. In assignment 1, you've told me some of the basic facts that constitute the information we know about your site. In assignment 2, I'll get the grades back for those for you very quickly here so that you have it for the assignment 3 and most importantly for assignment 4. You were thinking critically about sources. So we were thinking like anthropologists, we were being critical and ensuring using the search method that our sources convey information that is valuable or useful to us in terms of understanding the archaeological site, or you may have concluded simply that the source wasn't very useful, and that's equally okay. But the important is that we were critiquing those sources of information and comparing and contrasting what was available there. For this assignment, we're now going to do what archaeologists, as we talked about in class, kind of dislike doing, but absolutely have to do, which is assess the significance of our site and also identify the various stakeholders for the site. So again, this is one of those assignments where I'm going to have you fill out a template, some tables for this, and then you're going to be using this information in support of your proposal or assignment 4. Okay. So in terms of assessing significant, we're going to use the criteria that we have discussed in class and that are available in the lecture notes. You can also refer to some of the readings from the topics we've covered, such as the Alberta Historical Resources Act, or you can dive deep into those lovely documents on World Heritage sites as well. So the criteria we're going to be using, again, these appear in the lecture notes. The lecture notes for that topic are, let's just go back here because I'm blanking on it right now. Or if we scroll down under cultural resource management, museums and collections. Oh no, sorry, governance and archaeology. So that's topic 7 that you folks will want to look at this for. And these documents here. Although, again, some of the information from topic 8 may also be useful to you folks as well. Okay, let's go back to the assignment instructions then. So these are the criteria, and we discussed these in class. So what you're going to do is, based on your preliminary investigations into your site, assign a rating, beginning with 1, meaning that there is none or no evidence to support a rating for that criteria, 5 being great. Okay. Note here that what I'm not critiquing or what I'm not evaluating on is the criteria you're using per se in terms of the rating you assign, but rather the evidence and comments that you're providing in support of the rating that you have assigned. So I'm looking at this, imagine, as a government official that you are reporting to, and you're saying that the site has this significance. And I am making an assessment as to whether or not your rating is appropriate based on the evidence you are presenting to me, right? So again, remember that when we're assessing significance, it's not just opinion, it's based on the evidence that we use. So just a side note as well, make sure you update and put your site name here in the table when you hand this in. So this will be the part 1, is you will complete this table. And you can see here that point form is acceptable. Yes, you should use in-text citations if you're citing particular sources, but some of it might be just kind of anecdotal, right? People around the world know of Stonehenge, so it has kind of um, a criteria, or it meets a rating of criteria based on that itself. Okay, so what are the criteria again? Scientific criteria, authentic, cultural, historical, religious, public, economic, political, national. And you can also, if you want, use other as well. Okay. Then you're going to check off one of these boxes. So based on your overall assessment of all of these various criteria, do you think the archaeological site is of great significance, some significance, little significance, or not significance? Now, as we talked about in class, maybe it only has scientific significance. Let's say all of these other criteria you rate as a 1, but you're saying scientifically it is 5. Then you can make the argument that you're concluding that it is of great significance. Okay. And again, you'll have a chance to talk about this a little bit further. So this is where you're going to talk about it further, is in part 2. So in this table, you're just going to do point form. Again, assign a value 1 through 5, establish some points that you can use to support the rating you have. So for example, let's say I give it a 5. Evidence in support of having great scientific evidence is maybe it is a site that has already been extensively scientifically studied. Several studies have been done. It's been studied for decades, et cetera, et cetera. And so you're saying that that's and there's potential for ongoing continuous research at this site, likely yielding new material for decades to come. That could be your reasoning, the evidence that you're using to support a rating of 5 for scientific evidence. Okay. For part 2, what you're going to be doing is providing a statement that relates to not just the significance of your site, but also in terms of its condition, or what we would call site integrity. Okay. You'll note that I mentioned here that for a site to have integrity means that it must be well preserved, have relatively intact stratigraphy, and be undisturbed by natural and cultural transformation processes. So essentially what you're doing now is, based on your understanding of the site, of preservation of material culture, is you're going to write up a little paragraph, again, 250, maximum 500 words, so half a page to a page, maybe a paragraph or two, about the integrity and significance of the site. So integrity is going to be new, but the significance is where you're going to summarize all of this information here and create your statement that's going to support your ultimate conclusion, right? So you can state, I have determined the site is of great significance because, right? And then you can summarize this here. The other key thing I would like you to do for this one is, when you're writing the statement, don't write it as a student, attempt to write it as an archaeologist who's trying to convince a stakeholder, and not just a stakeholder, but any stakeholder at your site. So it should be accessible to the member of the public, right? So if you're talking about how your site is undisturbed by natural transformation processes, well, what is meant by that, right? The site hasn't been previously disturbed by gophers or burrowing animals. It hasn't been disturbed by cultural processes. There's been no contemporary developments that have impacted it, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. And again, the statement's going to become part of your proposal in assignment 4, so you're going to have an opportunity to tweak it again. So again, this is your attempt at making a generic statement around integrity and significance, and then you'll get an opportunity to tweak it if I think it's goes in one direction or another, in terms of being too formal or not formal enough. Then the last part is the specific part around stakeholders at your site. So one of the challenges you might have had, as I state, with assessing significance is attempting to incorporate the various perspectives of your stakeholders, right? So you might say, well, for an archaeologist, it is scientifically significant, but it's actually also of more significance. Let's say maybe it has average significance scientifically, that it's been studied, but it doesn't look like there's a lot more opportunities to excavate there. So there, it has provided some information, but it may not have the opportunity to yield additional information we may not know, but maybe it has great cultural significance, right? So in this case, you're representing the beliefs, understandings of the site for a particular group of people, right? So it can be challenging, right? Significant to whom? So in this case, you're making an overall assessment as an archaeologist. So here, you're going to provide more details as to who those stakeholders are and what their concerns are. So here's where you're going to get a chance to talk about, well, this site is significant to archaeologists, but it's not very significant to local people. It doesn't appear to be significant to local people. Maybe it should be if further work is done. So in less than 2 pages, I want you to answer these 5 questions. Who are the stakeholders of your site? So you're going to want to go back, right? And you're going to want to review, what topic was that way back when, where we talked about stakeholders in your site, the scientific method, I believe we talked about this, and research design as well, right? So go back through your previous topic notes if you have any questions about how we define stakeholders. Then I want you to think about ownership of the site. Who owns the site? Now, this is where a discussion of UNESCO sites can become important, and thinking about state policies. You're going to have to do a little bit of digging to find out. Think of this maybe not so necessarily in terms of own a site, so who has like the physical land of the site, but also think of it in terms of who is responsible for that site, right? So who manages archaeological work at the site, those kind of questions. And so that's what you're going to say is how you figured out who you think is the owner of that site. And again, it may be the government, it may be local people. In the United States, we talked about how it might be the landowner actually owns the land, because people in the United States who own land own the cultural properties that are also on that land that they own. I want you to determine who you think would be the best steward of the site, right? So thinking about stewardship, one of the responsibilities of archaeologists, who are the people who should have a say in what happens to the site, whether ongoing research is conducted at the site, who should be protecting the site if conservation and integrity are an issue, thinking about that. What are some of the concerns you have about your site? Maybe it is around preservation, that there isn't great organic preservation, that it has been damaged and destroyed by development. We talked about how the Acropolis is an entirely reconstructed site, that all of the structures at the Acropolis have been damaged through its thousands and thousands of years history through both natural and cultural activity. So that's maybe a major concern you have. Maybe a major concern is that there hasn't been Indigenous consultation. Maybe your concern is that there hasn't been enough excavation. Whatever it is, this is where you're going to mention it. And then the last piece is thinking about the kind of funding exercises, thinking about in kind of non-CRM context, who should be funding this? This you're going to have to do a little bit of research. Where is there funding opportunities in anthropology? Who funds anthropological research in Canada, in North America, outside of the context of the Americas? So you're going to have to do a little bit of, desktop internet sleuthing, right? Do a little bit of Googling and see what you folks can come up with. And then here is how it will be assessed below. So you'll see a couple of marks for completing your table, a couple of marks for your paragraph on integrity and significance, and then a couple of marks for the responses to each of the questions. Again, so not really a lot of research that needs to be done for this. This is rather you just kind of summarizing your understanding of the site to the date and then incorporating some of the topics we've talked about in course. So far this term. We'll have a chance to talk about this again on the 14th, the day before it's due. So if folks have questions, don't hesitate to bring those to class. Other than that, of course, you can always contact me during reading week as well. So best of luck on this assignment, everyone. Again, I think it's fairly straightforward. Note that in terms of the, actually, I might as well go over to it, that I did provide a Word copy of the template for this. So if you download it and open it up, you'll see it just looks like this. So we have the table in a typable form, check markable boxes here, and then you can basically just keep the heading and delete the questions and the instructions, and then upload this as a PDF, please, and thank you, to Meskinus by the due date. Okay, so take care, everyone, and I'll see you on November 14th.